Hey, welcome to Godfather Minute. Where we have the union and the game. Sorry, let me start again. Hello and welcome to Godfather Minute, where we have the unions and we have the gambling, and they are the best things to have. I'm Alex Robinson.
And I'm Andy Robinson.
And together we're Godfather Minute. How are you doing this week, Andy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're getting some good scenes here in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I would just want to say it again. I'm kind of glad we're finished with the wedding scene and we've moved on to some more plot.
Yeah. I think up until the Sicily, I think it moves along pretty well. I think Sicily is that's going to be our toughest challenge. There's a lot of just like slow shots of Sicily and then walking around the hills. So coming up with the good stuff to talk about. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to it.
Maybe when we get to those scenes, we'll have to bank some good content, some background. Yeah. Oh, that's when you can give us your real book report of Omerta, because that takes place in Sicily, right?
Yeah.
Right? You read it, right?
Today we're discussing minute 36 of The Godfather. 36.
36. E minuto.
Numero 36.
Close. Very close if you're speaking Spanish. 30.
36.
You got it.
Minuto numero 36. All right.
Your father.
So, minute 36 starts off with Tom telling the Don about the Turk. Mm-hmm. He says the Turk needs police protection, and for which he will provide a piece of the action of his drug operation that he wants to set up.
Alex, when you just said Tom telling the Don, and it rhymed, and it reminded me that we should probably come up with a rap. Oh. Put that down for bonus content.
Oh, I don't know.
No?
2 white guys coming up with a rap.
Come on, that'll be hilarious.
All right,
come on, our listeners want to hear it. I know our listeners.
There's a lot of money in that white rapping. Rap. I wrote it down.
Well, at least we'll have a drum beat and you and I will trade lines. It won't be like a rap battle.
Okay.
That would actually be funny. It's Sonny and Sollozzo rapping, doing a rap battle.
Well,
against
that'll be
each other.
For the musical. That'll be the section. That part will be the rap battle between.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it ends with him getting gunned down on the causeway.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the last
and when they show the guys with the machine guns, the sound effect won't be a machine gun. It will be a record scratching. Like,
totally.
At the toll booth.
Yeah. So he's a top narcotics man.
Uh-huh.
And he does have a prison record. He spent some time in Sicily and here.
Yeah, he did one in Italy and one here, right?
Yeah.
Here being the U.S. We have listeners who are not in America, Alex.
This is true. Well, we're recording in the U.S., so
that's true.
Yeah. So one in Sicily and one in. Does it say anything in the book? Do they have any background about the Turks? Have you gotten any of that stuff?
Just
curious what he was in for. What he did as 2 stretches.
Oh boy, let me reference my notes. I didn't have. Let's see. They go into a little bit about the Turk. They say he's called the Turk because he lived and spent time in Turkey, and they think he has a wife and kids in Turkey, or has a family in
I hope
there.
we see the Turks come back in Godfather 4.
Yeah. No, at this stage of the book, there's nothing more about Sollozzo. Puzo leaves him a little bit of a mystery. Mm-hmm. They just go into the business details.
Right.
And by the way, they know, it's clear in the movie too, that they know that Sollozzo is coming to them to make them this offer.
Right.
It's not like they're going in cold, not knowing what he's asking
Tom
about.
put together a dossier about it. So.
A very competent man and his own boss. He has a record. He's done 2 terms in prison, one in Italy, one in the U.S., and he's known to the authorities as a narcotics man. The only other part in the book that Puzo writes about Sollozzo is that him being his own boss and already having done prison sentences, it might be good to go into business with him. Why, Alex? Because he would never get immunity to testify against anyone.
Why?
And so if the Turk got busted, he wouldn't cooperate.
How do they know
There's
that?
no... I think the logic is because he would never be offered immunity because he's already... Well, one, he has no one to rat out because he's his own boss. It's not like there's a bigger fish that he could...
Well, but I mean, there's the other 5 families.
Yeah, that's what Puzo wrote. He would never get immunity to testify against anyone. Also, if the Turk got busted, he wouldn't cooperate if he knew his U.S. wife and kids were taken care of.
Okay, so he has a U.S. wife and kids too? Besides
It sounds like
his
it.
Turkish wife and kids.
Like
he's hedging his bets.
Like they said, he's good with a knife. Yeah, that's about it for the old Turk.
So the Don asks Sonny what he thinks about the deal. And Sonny says the line which we both love, there's a lot of money in that white powder.
Yeah.
And so do you think...
He's eating nuts or something.
Is he
right?
real? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, he's cracking some type of pistachio or something. Which to me adds to maybe the lack of seriousness of Sonny. He's sort of eating while this serious business is being discussed. Now, Puzo does write in the book a little bit more about Sonny's response, which is different than his response in
In the movie. Okay.
The book is different than the movie.
The book is different.
Puzo wrote, Hagen knew what Sonny would... the Don puffed his cigar and said, Santino, what do you think? Hagen knew what Sonny would say. Sonny was chafing at being under the Don's thumb. He wanted a big operation of his own. Something like this would be perfect. So Sonny was already thinking of getting...
He was hot for that deal.
He was hot for that deal, but for himself in particular,
Wow.
not so much for the family.
Yeah.
And then Sonny took a long slug of scotch. There's a lot of money in that white powder, he said, but it could be dangerous. Some people could wind up in jail for 20 years. I'd say that if we kept out of the operations end, just stuck to protection and financing, it might be a good idea.
It's a good Sonny.
It's a good Sonny. I appreciate the difference in the book because that makes him seem to be more thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
And then he's actually thinking strategically, hey, let's not get into the distribution, but just finance. Whereas in the book, he's eating pistachios and he's pretty much a lot of money in that white powder, Pop.
Yeah,
What's the answer going to be? Come on. What are you going to do, Pop?
I guess because in the movie, they have much less time to get into that kind of detail and stuff.
Well, I also think the movie makes him look more headstrong and not
because
as serious about
they
it.
need to do broader big versions of the characters to make them pay off. So I was wondering when he says, "Oh, what do you think, Santino?" And he says a lot of money in that white powder, Pop. So according to the book, he really is jonesing for the deal. I was wondering if
Sonny,
if the Don was asking him this, knowing what his answer was going to be, but just to see if Sonny is learning.
Yeah.
You know.
And he does. He's sort of testing him out.
So you think at this point he doesn't think he's going to do the deal? You don't think the Don is going to? The Don is not hot for the deal.
Who are you asking? Tom or Sonny?
It's like who's you?
Oh, you're asking me.
So if he is just testing Sonny to see what his answer would be, that implies that the Don already knows he's not going to do the deal.
Yeah. Hagen,
Either that or he's legitimately seeking out Sonny's advice.
So Hagen knows that the Don is not going to go for it.
He does know that.
Hagen knows.
Okay.
Yeah. And Puzo writes about that.
But in the movie, he definitely makes an attempt to try to convince him to do it.
He does, and it's still his job to try to convince him to it. But let's go back to Sonny. Puzo wrote, Hagen looked at... So Sonny says this line about the white powder and how it could make them a lot of money, but they should be careful. Hagen looked at Sonny approvingly. He had played his cards well. He had stuck to the obvious. Much the best course for him. And then Hagen, the Don puffed on his cigar. And you, Tom, what do you think? Hagen composed himself to be absolutely honest. He had already come to the conclusion that the Don would refuse Sollozzo's proposition. But what was worse, Hagen was convinced that for one of the few times in his experience, the Don had not thought things through. He was not looking far enough ahead.
in my notes, I wrote down, is the Don getting out of his league? Like he's, he doesn't have a head for big
deals.
Big deals, right? Yeah. So like, he's good for like a small. I mean, obviously he has a big empire, but it's relatively small, like in terms of, he's still dealing with funeral people and like roughing up thugs and things like that.
He doesn't have the vision, the long-term vision that someone like Michael would come to have.
Well, and I guess also he's old fashioned, so to him, like, oh, drugs are a no good. Whereas younger people might be like, hey, it's we don't have that stigma to it. We're just looking to make money every way we can. So the Don's getting soft.
Hell, these kids they're growing cannabis in the basement, underneath the church. Infamada.
Yeah, so because Tom does seem hot for the deal.
Yeah.
There's more money potential in narcotics than anything else they're looking at.
Yeah.
Now, do you think he said that because he knows that Waltz's big star is about to move from marijuana to heroin? So he knows, like, boy, if that guy's getting into heroin, it must be like, it's the, those Hollywood stars are doing it. It must be like the cool new thing that they're doing.
Wow. Hagen's thinking strategic. He had just gotten back from Hollywood, so he's probably thinking about all that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I have a little bit of history of heroin.
Oh,
up
cool.
until this point, up until the hit point of 1940s. It's been around since the 1800s. It originally was, of course, a medicine. It was originally created to help morphine addiction. Like if you were addicted to morphine, you'd be like, well, here, take this heroin. It's much better for you. You won't get addicted to it the way you're addicted to morphine. So looking back, seems kind of like you're trading one for the other. Maybe morphine is more deadly.
Do you get addicted to morphine?
Oh yeah, morphine is very it's powerfully addictive.
So it's more addictive than heroin?
I mean, that's not something you generally hear, but maybe at the time they just didn't realize it.
Yeah, they didn't know.
Or maybe the heroin then was less pure, so it wasn't as, I don't know what the...
Yeah, it depends where the poppies are from.
Yeah.
Because the Turks' poppies from
it's
Turkey.
We'll get their poppy. But in the 1930s and 40s is when it started becoming popularized in the United States, starting in like Harlem in the jazz era. That's when people started. That's when it started becoming like that people were doing it, for fun.
And so, in what communities was it being used? White, black?
Well, I guess so I would say mostly like in black communities, because in the 50s, like the Beats and the hipsters started picking up on it, and that makes sense. They would have got something because white people love stealing cool stuff from black people, so they would have been like, "Hey, we should totally start doing that." And I guess that's where this is right on that cusp of where it's starting to get into that white people are starting to do it,
because the Hollywood it's hitting white Hollywood
elite.
And like one of the crime bosses in the movie says later, he wants to keep it out of the
white
schools. Neighborhoods.
A lot of it comes in. A lot of it used to come in through the French connection, which is the things were grown in Turkey and then they were shipped out of France to the United States. They would come on boats from the United States.
Okay.
1947. That was the first big heroin bust in the United States.
Oh, wow.
A Corsican sailor was busted with 7 pounds of heroin. That's 3 kilograms for those of you outside.
That doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess back then it must have been fairly unique.
Yeah.
Corsican mobsters were running this thing under the protection of the U.S. government in Italy. After World War II, the United States did not want Italy going communist. So they're like, okay, we'll help the mob. Like,
really?
Yeah, basically, we'll give the mob protection because they'll be the ones to stop the communists from rising up. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So I guess first
was there really a risk that the Italian government would go communist?
Yeah, Europe in the especially after World War II, aside from the fact that you had the Soviet Union wanting to turn as many countries communist as possible.
Yeah.
Europe has a lot more tradition of socialism and that kind of stuff than we do over here.
So why was the U.S. government paying off the mob of Italy and not just the Italian government?
because
Or was it one and the same?
Yeah, basically. Well, it was kind of like under American after the war. It was like under like American supervision because we were like, okay, let's and that was when they said they wanted the mob to be more because they had more local connections and things like that. There were politicians and stuff, but a lot of them were in the beholden to the mob anyway. So
is it correct the U.S. government knew that Italy was playing a role in processing and shipping heroin to the U.S.?
I assume so.
Yeah.
So they were just like turning a blind eye to it, and presumably they didn't want it coming in, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to risk alienating the gangsters.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, ship it anywhere else, but just not near the schools.
That's strange, Alex. I'm not sure I believe that. I mean, senators don't have drugs shipped to America.
It's true. I was being naive when I said that. Yeah. So there you go.
Wow,
So
interesting. So was Hagen correct that 10 years from then is when drugs would bring in the most money for crime families in New York?
You have to assume that that's accurate.
Because if not now, 10 years from now.
Yeah. Because
about 10 years?
apparently Tom could read the writing on the wall that drugs were going to become more and more of a thing. Certainly more, because obviously they lost their liquor.
Yeah.
Couldn't import, things from Canada and the molasses anymore, or so they needed something more to fall back on.
They couldn't leave the horse for last anymore.
It's true. So he said they have the gambling and the unions, which are the best things to have.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that does seem surprising to me. You wouldn't think like gambling would, but I wonder if also Tom is saying this as a little bit of brown nosing. Mm-hmm. Like we have the unions and the gambling, which of course, Don, you set up, and we know those are the best things to have. Like a little bit of like buttering him up to get him ready for the.
That's probably true, and he probably also frames the need to get into the drug business as a threat to what Don Corleone you built. Like, if we don't get into this, it's going to destroy everything you built.
Yeah, that's
so it's
true.
Another way to sell it.
Because the other families will get involved, and I guess it's kind of like you have to do, in order to remain competitive, you have to kind of take on the same things or work with people, like because otherwise you'll be like, trying to think of a company that went out of business for being.
A Blockbuster.
There you go. Totally. So you think at some point in the Blockbuster, like CEO, there was some guy saying like,
we got to get into streaming.
We got the video rentals and we got the popcorn sales, the on-site popcorn sales, but we got to get into the streaming.
If we don't get into streaming now, they're going to come, they're going to get into it. Maybe not now, but 10 years from now.
It's a lot of money in that Wi-Fi pop.
It was a lot faster than 10 years, wasn't it?
From
that streaming came.
Oh yeah,
that streaming brought down VHS tapes. Speaking of VHS tapes, pretty soon we will watch The Last Don, which we have on VHS, and we're going to put that in a bonus content.
Yeah, with bonus.
I just wanted to remind you of that. It's sitting on my dresser.
We haven't forgotten The Last Don. Don't worry, Don. We haven't forgotten you.
And if Danny Aiello, if you by chance are listening to this, we invite you to watch it with us and then come on the bonus episode.
That should be the bonus content for our last episode. It's The Last Don.
Oh, do you think our listeners can wait that long?
I don't know.
That's like 2.5 years. I mean, they can wait now, but if not now, then 2.5 years from now.
Yeah, totally. I think it's more than 2.5. You mean? Is it? I mean, the last thing after the end of Godfather 3.
Oh wow,
that probably is 10 years from now. What can I do to help you, Mr. Joey Zaza?
The Last Don. The Last Zaza. Well, speaking of leaving the horse for last, there's a little bit.
Before we do that, didn't we have something we were going to talk about in our bonus content
episode?
today?
Well, weren't you going to say more lines, and we were going to,
more quotes,
and
see.
Did we have any? We asked, we answered. Any unresolved ones?
We'll take a look. So we're definitely going to start with the quotes, and we might have some other unfinished business.
Well, and for those of you that listen, we come up with an idea, we try to stick with it, but what we end up talking about is always a lot more interesting and fun. We really cut loose and let it roll during the bonus content.
So if this sounds intriguing to you, go to godfatherminute.com/support, sign up, and It's fairly cheap. So anyway, yes.
And hopefully you're having fun now, but if not now, then 20 minutes from now. You'll be running.
There's a lot of funny in that bonus content, Pop.
So speaking of leaving the horse for last, Let's see. Okay. There's a part in the book about prostitution. And so interestingly, Hagen did not want to bring up that the Turk had made his money before World War II by prostitution because he didn't think that the Godfather would approve and wouldn't want to do business with the Turk.
Because the Turk was a prostitute?
No, the Turk wasn't a prostitute.
Oh, he wasn't.
No. I mean, it might explain why he's got all these families.
That's weird.
It's a little bit ironic, but
because later on, the Don does say like women are considered, like trafficking and gambling in women are considered harmless vices.
Yeah, it's really strange. Puzo writes,
and we know Fredo owns a brothel in GF2, but maybe by then they're.
And our theory is that he really enjoys that position. Going to the airports, picking people up, having Mickey Mouse nightclubs. This is a safe bet.
Yeah.
Puzo wrote,
I'm going to step over here and take care of the nightclub.
Yeah.
Anyway, Puzo writes,
Don Corleone went out the door. He said casually, so this is after their meeting. He said casually to Hagen,
Do you have in your notes that the Turk made his living from prostitution before the war, as the Tattaglia family does now? Write that down before you forget.
Ooh. There was just a touch of derision in the Don's voice, and Hagen flushed. Hagen had deliberately not mentioned it, legitimately so, since it really had no bearing, but he had feared it might prejudice the Don's decision.
But the Don knew anyway.
The Don was notoriously straight-laced in matters of sex.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But Don Corleone wanted to show his consigliere that he, in fact, did his own homework.
So he did a good job at the Hollywood, and then he immediately threw it all away by basically lying to the Don.
Well, that's how you keep a consigliere sharp. Or maybe he's gearing, training him to be a wartime consigliere.
Oh, right. Keeping him tough.
Yeah, busting his chops all the time.
Why is he out? Why is he out, Mikey?
But it does seem odd that Tom worries that Don Corleone would not do business with him because he made his money in prostitution, because that's one of the cornerstones of the Corleone fortune.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe it's well, we don't know if he do the Corleones specifically make money from women, or do they just help other people with their, because we know Tattaglia is a pimp.
He's a pimp.
So maybe that's his way of saying, like, we don't deal in women. Like, that's Tattaglia, he's a pimp. So like that's his sleazy thing. Like,
yeah.
And so maybe with the Turk, it was a similar thing.
But I also have in my notes that in the movie, the family does deal in prostitution. Mm-hmm. But in the book, so far, it hasn't been mentioned.
Do we see it in the movie?
Well, Fredo runs Rub Joint, and in GF2, Hyman Roth.
In GF2, when the Don is out of the picture.
Yeah. But Hyman Roth references the Rub Joints. Oh, but maybe those are Hyman Roth's rub joints and not the Corleone. Sorry, I
hope that's what the chain is called, Hyman Roth's rub joints.
Come on down.
Little neon sign.
Come on down to Hyman Roth's rub joints and enjoy.
We have two blondes for the gentleman on the left.
Just don't go into Mo Green's room and he goes in, I'm Mo Green. It's like
laying on the table.
You go into that one, it's Mo Green chewing you out. And of course, Hyman Roth would take advantage of his rub joint franchise and have in front of each one a statue of Mo Green, maybe on a table with the towel over him.
Like it's like a bronze statue of him laying on the table
with his eye bleeding, but his thumb up.
So would it be after he died, or would it be like right before he died?
I guess it'd be right before he gets shot.
Right.
It would be the bronze statue. So it would be Hyman Roth's rub joint in neon, because it always has to be in neon.
Yeah. I like how each of our businesses is the person's name, possessive, and then the name of the business, the description of the business.
Hyman Roth's rub joints, and it would be
Hyman Roth's Daffy Duck rub joints. Like the Mickey Mouse nightclubs, you got the Daffy Duck rub joints.
And it would be Mo Green on the face down on the rub joint massage table with the towel over him. Thumb up, wearing glasses, no bullet hole in his eye, no blood, but a separate side bronze statue behind him of the masseuse turning to walk away. So it's that pivotal moment.
Literally. Oh, but he is giving a thumbs up for some reason.
Well, because he's promoting the rub joint.
This is like a memorial statue or something like that.
No, that's not even a statue.
I think it should be holding like a martini glass or something like that. It should be empty because no one can get drinks. Oh, I cannot wait to get to the Hyman Roth stuff.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Maybe we should do, here's what I'm going to propose. We totally restructure the program.
What?
We start with minute 1. We do minute 1 of Godfather. Then we do minute 1 of Godfather 2. Then we do minute 1 of Godfather 3, and so on. And then we just keep cycling through. That way we get to do Hyman Roth stuff. We get to do Joey Zaza. We get to do like all the different ages.
I wonder if we'll find out if there was any deliberate timing in that way.
That's like Godfather 3 on steroids.
Oh, man. That's like Hyman Roth on acid. Can you imagine Hyman Roth on acid?
Oh, my God. I love the concept.
This is the business we've chosen. You think he's referencing the Hyman Roth's rub joints when he gets mad in GF2? He's like, this is the business we've chosen. He's all mad.
Totally, yeah. I remember I used to run a rub joint out of Canada with your father.
With the towels your father provided in the rub joints.
Here's something interesting. As far as I know, this is the first reference to the 5 families.
Really?
Who will have a big part, obviously, later on in the movie. So he says, oh, maybe if the other 5 families, we'll get into it. So does that imply there are 6 families ultimately?
I guess so.
Because it's the Corleones and there are 5. But you always hear like the meeting of the 5 families.
That's true.
Which are the meeting of the 6 families.
You know, I'll have to look because later in the book, or actually earlier in the book, Puzo wrote about the wars.
Yeah.
I know it is later in the book.
Okay.
About the crime family wars. But God, well, there are actually more families than that, but those are the New York families.
Right. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe there are 6 families.
Maybe during the war, one of the families is like absorbed into like the Tattaglia family because they lose so many members.
Well, maybe that's the Pantangeli family.
Ah,
maybe
he gets absorbed into the Dons.
Into the Corleone family.
Oh, I like that.
It's like Genghis Khan. He just keeps conquering and absorbing.
I really like that. That'd be
really cool.
Yeah.
Even if that's not true, let's just
let's say that it's
and
true.
you know why Frankie lost the war?
Why did he lose the war?
Because he doesn't have the mind for
big deals.
Yeah, big deals.
Cheech, a morte. Is that what he says?
La porte.
La porte. There you go.
The door.
Cheech, l'amore.
She said, huh? No wonder he goes to testify against him.
Wait, Hyman Roth's rub joint? Yeah, a whole lot of rub joints.
Yes, Senator, a whole lot of rub joints. Do you think Hyman Roth asked Don Corleone to go in with him on the rub joint business idea?
Well, Hyman Roth?
Yeah.
No. Because he knows how prudish the Don is when it comes to matters of...
that would be a funny business meeting.
Yeah.
It's like, I appreciate you coming to me, Hyman, my good friend, but I must say no. You know, in matters of sex, I'm very straight-laced.
Well, he wouldn't say no right then. When Hyman Roth left, he'd be like, when I come and the money's here, I'll know I have a partner. Yeah. If there's a bunch of towels on the table, I'll know I have a partner. Or not?
This guy's been going to the same rub joint for 50 years.
I love how it's a franchise, too.
I'm a retiree living on a pension from all my rub joints. He mentions it at every opportunity. He's really proud of it. Yeah. Anyways,
do you like rub joints, Michael? Love them.
It got to the point where it became so popular that they were like, you say, "Hey, why don't you give me a Roth?" That became like the slang for
Oh, and then there's a Cuban Roth.
Cuban Roth. That's where someone holds a pillow over your face.
Oh man, I think we're getting into bonus content material. All right,
Totally.
Write it down.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna write that down. So
That's funny.
all right. So yeah. So and then the minute ends with Tom saying maybe not now, maybe 10 years from now, and that's when the minute ends.
Tom's got vision.
He's got a head for big deals.
Yeah. No wonder Michael keeps him on as his consigliere.
For a while. Then he He's out.
He's out, but he could be helpful.
Sorry. All right, so I guess that'll wrap up the regular content. We will be reconvening shortly for the bonus content.
Alex, how many minutes left?
Until what?
Till the cannoli countdown.
We're working on a countdown,
Cannoli. You won't be seeing Polly no more.
How many minutes left? How many minutes left? We're doing the countdown. How many minutes left? How many
Well, let's
minutes
see.
left?
If this
How
is
many
minute
minutes left?
36,
How many minutes left?
there's got to be 26
How many
minutes left.
left?
Is that
Come on,
accurate?
Santino. How many minutes
You won't see
left?
Paulie no more beginning in
How many
minute
minutes
59.
left? Consider
59, so how many is
How
that?
many minutes left?
Let's see. It's minute 36, 59. Carry the 3. That's 23.
I don't have the head for big deal. 23 minutes
20
left.
23 minutes left.
23 minutes left. Consigliere. 23 minutes.
All right, so
I got one more callback. What do you call it?
call back.
So I want to
Call me back.
I want to institute a new bit. Not really a bit, but it's called cleanup.
Clean up.
Yeah, these are things that sort of we forgot to talk about, closing the loops, getting some closure on some previous things. So in a previous bonus content, we talked about how the differences in ages between the three brothers and how the difference in age between Sonny and Fredo is more than the difference between Fredo and Mike. Do you remember that?
Well, that makes sense because
Yeah.
he's older.
No, but the difference between them.
Wait, the difference between Fredo and
The difference between Sonny and Fredo, I don't remember what it was. It's in your companion. It was something like 3 years. But Fredo to Mike was just 1 year.
Okay, so that gap is less.
Yeah, that gap is
that-
less.
that's-
So my question is that more or less frustrating for Fredo that he was stepped over?
Oh, more.
Why?
Oh no, I guess it would be less
Why?
because if they're almost the same age, then he can like almost convince himself that like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am the younger brother.
What do they call that? It's like, what's that psychological process where you convince yourself of something?
Yeah, totally. I think it's like. Well, you think it'd be worse if he was? Do
No,
you
I
think
think
it's
you're
worse if
right.
they're closer?
Well, no, I think you're right because
Yeah, I could see
if
either
he,
way.
if he were much younger, then he'd be like, "Oh, I stepped over my kid brother of
Yeah.
5 years, kid
Yeah.
brother."
Yeah, I was gonna say that could be it. If he's like, well, you're not experienced enough, Fredo. If you're not experienced enough, Fredo, and
Yeah.
he's like, your brother who's a year younger than you, he's way more experienced.
That's how
College
they-
boy.
That's how they explained it to
Yeah.
him. I just thought,
Maybe next year maybe next year he'll be younger than you.
do you think maybe they told Fredo since he was a kid that he was younger than Michael because they knew he would never take over this,
Oh, at
and
a
they
certain age.
They didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. But then at some age, Fredo
must
actually
find out.
found the birth records.
Yeah.
He's like, "Wait a minute, this is my kid brother.
When I
You don't lie to your child like that."
when I was in college, a friend of mine told me this story that, he was 18 and to go to college, he was getting a physical, just go to your doctor, get shots and all that stuff checked out. And he said he was putting his clothes on at the doctor's like, okay, put your clothes back on, I'll meet you out in the office. And he said he was putting his clothes on and he looked down and his folder was there. And on his folder, it said he was adopted. That was how he found out he was adopted by looking at the form and being like, what the hell?
Wow.
So maybe it's a similar thing with Fredo. That's how he found out he was actually the older brother the whole time.
Oh
He
man.
thought he was 10 years younger than Mike.
Oh wow. What an experience.
Crazy. Yeah, he said when he was growing up, like every girl he dated, like his parents really wanted to meet. Because he's like, they didn't want to make sure he didn't wind up dating like someone who was his sister or something.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
It's because they may have been in the same town
Yeah,
still.
the same town or whatever.
Wow,
So,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
freaky.
So Fredo found, what would have been the setting for Fredo to find that out? I mean, it wouldn't have been a physical. It would have been, I don't know, maybe Michael's college papers or something.
or maybe
college
when he was
application.
filling out like the license, the liquor license for the nightclub.
Oh.
And stuff.
Or maybe he finds Michael's college application essay where he talks about his younger brother and wanting to take care of him.
Yeah.
Or his older brother and like being conflicted of stepping over his older brother.
Oh,
He was like, "What? He's my younger
in his,
brother?"
in his college essay, he wrote about taking over the mob.
Yeah, he had vision.
Just have a head for big deals.
Or maybe Michael on his college essay said, my my father wants me to take over the business, but I can't because I have an older brother. I have 2 older brothers.
Yeah.
So I might as well go to college or join the army. And that's what Francis is like, wait a minute, 2 older brothers.
Who's this other brother you got? Yeah. You don't even mention me, and then you're talking about this other brother you got all over the place.
I gotta find that. I got a second older brother like that.
All right, so I guess that'll wrap up minute 30, whatever. 36. And
36.
yeah, we said it was 22 minutes until the
23 minutes till you don't see Paulie no more.
It's 22 minutes until we
Take the gun and leave the cannoli.